can we see that the ego is this what we all see, that in the root of that hurricane is the ego, which is doing this hurricane, and ego telling I don't want this hurricane. And now I'm saying, okay, I'm on a little peripheral of hurricane. It's too turbulent. Let me come inside a little better, step by step. I'm getting, who is get the cause cannot be the solution. So me wanting to get free, isn't that another ego state? And then it has its own non-freedom associated with it.
My fundamental question to that would be, is there a scientifically or psychologically proven non-ego?
No, I'm not even coming to that. No, I'm not even coming to that. I'm not coming to that.
Because if that is the case, then I don't know, because I don't think a person can stay without an ego.
I'm not even coming to that. I'm coming to a point of understanding that isn't ego the main cause of not having psychological freedom, and then everything that we are doing is ego doing to make it bearable, and hence an irony.
If that's the case, then psychological freedom doesn't exist.
No, I love that statement. Let's stick to that. Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love it, because now the psychological freedom doesn't exist. I would want to complete that sentence. It's still, I love that statement, in my opinion. Yeah, I love that statement, but it's only half. Psychological freedom does not exist for. Can somebody try and fill up that blank? Psychological freedom does not exist for.
I want to say the natural conclusion to that sentence is for somebody who doesn't have an ego.
Okay? For the ego.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
Because if there was a pattern, if there was an injection, right, that could take away this psychological unfreedom like malaria, we all would have been injected by it. The entire human race. This question has been open for ages. Why aren't we there? Isn't it ironical? And can we see it? And if we can't see it, let's not go towards it. Yeah, but can we see it? That it's just an ego trying to cope up with the unbearable incompleteness and conflicts of the ego, and it just completes one of the turbulence for time being and makes you happy, and then there is another always open. And that's why the question was, can there ever be a becoming? Can there ever be a step by step? There will always be another steps to achieve, because the ego is there, and ego is the cause of all of it. So it may come up in different forms, maybe it will never end, because it's ego who's creating it, and it's just fooling you and making one feel of I'm not telling that you didn't conquer your anger, yeah, at certain, I'm not saying that. You definitely went from A to B, but now at B you might have few other things which were never there at A.
Absolutely.
And it's maybe that's why I said, is there a becoming? Is there a step-by-step percentage achievement of psychological freedom? I mean, we can all be happy with achieving 2-3 things, and we say, now I'm feeling I'm at peace with myself, or the life is bearable. Let me put it that way. Yeah. But is it freedom?
But in order to do that, what you're saying, right, there should be a well-established scale of psychological freedom that somebody should have already, put in place, so we can compare ourselves against that, right?
But
so if we have decided that psychological freedom itself is very subjective,
yes,
number one,
yes,
so how do we measure that? So I have more and you have less.
No, so again, for me, there is no more and less. There is no psychological freedom.
Yeah.
That's the premise that we set already, right? And subjectivity comes from the way it manifests for you versus, say, KL versus Piyush versus me. I mean, for you now, maybe anger is not. For me, maybe anger still is. So it's just manifesting in different way. That's the subjectivity. But the common ground maybe is that we don't have the psychological freedom. And the other common ground from the discussion that we had, maybe, I'm not sure, is that the ego itself being the biggest hurdle into the psychological freedom state, whatever that state could be, we don't know because we are not there yet. A 10% achievement of psychological freedom isn't psychological freedom. So if ego is the main problem, the I-ness, the central I-ness, if that's the state which is creating this whole havoc of not giving me psychological freedom, now that I-ness cannot ask for, okay, now let me give you psychological freedom. It's like suicide. Yeah, I can't kill myself. It's going to hurt me. It might not kill me, but it's going to really, really hurt me. That entire effort of telling I want to be free is going to be painful then in one way or the other, because I am trying to get freedom where I am the cause. Yeah. Pilar Alessandra, something please. Are we going too much outside the scope of our regular discussions? I mean,
No, well, I think that we've all made very interesting, very good points on psychological freedom, and you really have to reflect. Well, yeah, I also agree that there's no 100% psychological freedom, but I think we can go working to be a little bit freer through becoming aware, through our consciousness, through our taking power over ourselves and our lives.
Is it really taking power? Because isn't it only solving some of the issues in the ego while the ego evolves some others? Yeah. Is it that's what the question was. I mean, I'm angry now. In last 1 year I worked on my anger, and my anger is now, so I went from one ego state into another ego state. That's just freedom from one of the manifestation of the ego, but the ego has now 5 other things in front of me. So while I feel I have, and that's just fooling myself to cope up with this unbearability that I do not have freedom, isn't it?
I think I was better off when I wasn't aware of psychological freedom.
Yes.
But we have to think about it as a right.
Absolutely.
We have to.
Oh yes,
I'm
we
sorry.
have to think of it as a right, because if we don't think that we have the right to be psychologically free,
Yes.
then we're not going to aim for it. It's going to be out of reach. And then
Yes.
again, we are going to be in between the fear, guilt, consequence,
Yes.
vicious circle.
And I will end up asking myself, why should I even be a better version of myself?
That's the different. That's exactly. And this. And don't you think people would have done that? Do you think people have you not met people who were on a very nice positive cycle of their life and trying to change themselves, and then said, damn it, I'm going to do whatever I want. Let me, exactly what you thought. Now people have done that, and that's and to Pilar's point, I believe from a Maslow stand, I believe every human being, yeah, compared to maybe an animal state, I don't know animal state, yeah, but every human being has this right to be psychologically free and at a complete peace with oneself. That's our right, and that's maybe even our duty. But aren't we looking at it the way we are approaching it? Isn't that the vicious cycle in itself so far? Ego trying to feed and free from ego, and trying to do it step by step, and thinking and having books and lectures and entire programs set, 5 days and 10 days mindfulness, do stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. Yeah, Pilar, sorry.
Well, clearly what I'm getting is that I do have a right to be
Yes.
psychologically free.
Yes.
How do I not forget the right? And I'm not going to get a tattoo. You are free. Every time I write, you are free. Every time I eat, you are free. It would be interesting, but I don't think that's the way to do it. But you have to exercise it. You have to say, okay, I am aware that I can do this, and it's my right, and I am going to see if in this particular situation I can get it done. In my case, because my mind is like a machine that pops popcorn. You know, there's always something going on, and it's getting out and explodes and goes everywhere. In my agendas, always in my agendas, I put in different parts of the year. Look for, I don't know, April 1st, or look for whatever, or a phrase that it's very strong for me. I copy it in many parts and in the last page to keep it with me, to remind me that I have learned that, because my life every day has a challenge, and some very valuable things that I learned, I unlearned, or I forgot, or I was busy doing else. So for me, the reminders are very important, to know
Yes.
what I learned, what I achieved,
Yes.
to go back. I even have another little notebook, because you always see me writing, but this is the orange one, that has that little notebook that I can take everywhere, is for when I'm feeling shitty. And on the top of the page it says, if angry, if sad, if frustrated, if whatever, and I keep my lessons. Obviously, when my child grows up and finds it, he says, oh, my mom's handwriting is horrible, and he's going to throw it to the garbage. Hopefully I will be dead by then. But anyway, the idea is to keep the lessons with us, because we have too much going on, too much. Even though we sometimes think we're little lambs just carrying a leaf from point A to point B, the roads are bumpy,
Yes. Yes.
and the emotions just put filters of color to things,
Yes.
and that's it.
Okay, maybe if anybody has any points, please feel free. I want to try and complete that presentation which I had. I think it is at a point where we discussed few things, so I wanted to touch them up and maybe leave the group for a few things to think about. Yeah, and hopefully we end on a positive note and not like doctor saying, oh, why the hell am I doing this? So the irony, I think the from science, from all the previous psychology that we did, Freud and all of them, the nature and the nurture part, the id, the instincts, the animal instinct, the purpose, yeah, the conflict, seems to be all driven by or characterized by the same center, the I-ness. And it seems that this I-ness then wants freedom, which reinforces the I-ness in itself, which will then again have all of those characteristics. Yes, it looks like an ironical cage. Killing, suppressing, diluting this I forcefully, etc., looks like a suicide attempt. It's going to be hurtful. It's going to be painful. Yeah, that's maybe not the right approach. Relativity, I think we touched upon relativity. I mean, relative freedom is maybe it cannot coexist with the conditioning. Yeah, so it's maybe there is nothing called relative freedom, or freedom is freedom. So then, what is freedom, and for whom? And how does it look like? And that's the question where doctor is telling it has to be established. I should be able to see somebody do it, but that's the I-ness again. And how can I see it? Because I-ness is the hurdle to it. Yeah. So for me, this is how freedom looks like. And beyond this, anything that I say is conditioning, because it's all gone. So what I could say is that step back and see who is seeing the screen, not you. Who's seeing the screen? Yeah. That silence, that space is the most critical point for awareness to exist. And that silence and that space is the only answer for the non-I-ness. Then I am not Jamin speaking to this group. It's us, it's me, it's all of this is connected. And then there is a other extreme to this is, oh, I am everything, I'm God. No, this doesn't mean that. Yeah. Nor does it mean, oh, I-ness is bad, I have to kill my ego. It doesn't mean that. Yeah, it's all connected. And it's hard to put in words, because words will then be defined by I-ness, and I-ness, at least for me, I'm not there yet. Yeah? So, and the I-ness is the hurdle, is what we have established. So the silence, the void, the space, not the negative vacuum. Yeah, really the silence is the space. More the silence, more the space, and that gets you awareness of looking at yourself, your mind working, and then that mind is turbulent, and it can be turbulent because it's its nature. But now the mind is not fooling itself by coming up with a thought of telling, I want to free myself from my characteristics. You are able to see it functionally and let it be. And maybe that observation, that silence, if it is there, that's psychological freedom. And the way to achieve it is it, and nothing else. Yeah. So I think with that, I would want, at least I am done. I don't know if it made sense. I know it was a little different than what we have been usually talking. But the way to it is it. And then whatever it means. That would be a good tattoo, Pilar. The way to it is it. People will beat me up for that. Yeah. So, any last closing remarks? Well, I'm done. I don't have anything else to say.
I would like to close it with one note as well. So for me as a person, I don't like most of the things I don't see as 0 or 1, like black or white. So for me, things are more in the gray area. And being a my expectation, and again, it's my expectation from a normal person, most of the people, I should not say normal, but most of the people is, they will have emotions for sure. And you can say they are ego driven or the I-ness driven emotions. So if they are successful, they have emotions. If they face failure, they have emotions. They lose somebody, they will have emotions. So those are kind of emotions that I won't say are hindering or stopping you from achieving the emotional, the psychological freedom. Maybe you are not 100% there, but I don't think I should be 100% there. That's my perception. Again, that's my personal perception. So for me, I want to be as close as I can, but not completely there. To be in the most of the people group or something like that.
Yeah. So, so when Piyush, when you feel the emotion, we spoke about something within you who is aware that you are feeling that emotion, right? At least that is something that we established.
Yes.
If you see who is aware, who is seeing it?
It's me, my consciousness.
So me, my consciousness is what you spoke. Something within you is aware that you spoke. It's me, my consciousness. Who is aware that you were aware?
I mean, that way, if you say, it will keep on going. So I am not sure if I have an answer to that.
Which is good. And that is maybe how psychological freedom looks like, because then it doesn't matter what you're doing, what you are not doing, what your mind is working, it's not working. Is it working to improve or not improve? It has to improve, and it will improve with that space. Yeah. So one, aware of being aware. If we can try to, and that, I think that is within all of us. It's not Jamin can do something, and it's not that I'm an LSD and I'm imagining things. Yeah. So, but if you ask yourself in this moment, now you're looking at the screen. So that's your physical thing is looking at the screen, and you are aware that now Piyush is looking at the screen. And now who is aware that you are aware that you are looking at the screen? And that if that gives you that silence is that space, and that space is that freedom, maybe. And one doesn't need to achieve it. You cannot achieve it. It's nothing of becoming. As I mentioned, the way to, maybe, I'm not sure, the way to it is it, which means we all have it. And there cannot be a way to it. There cannot be a gradual step-by-step becoming to it. It is it, and you all have it. And that takes away the entire equation of whether I have improved or not, whether I'm improving or not. It's who is the looker? Who is, be aware of the awareness. And that's the closest the words from my perspective can get into it, because that has helped me actually get closer sometimes to that state of freedom. Sometimes, yeah. And when I am not that, it's me, that's my I-ness, that will never be free anyways. And that's okay. That's okay. That's how my mind is. But now my mind is not struggling for my mind to be free. Okay. Maybe we should close the call. At least I stopped the recording now. Yeah.